because the Deepcut part of my County Council division of Mytchett, Frimley Green and Deepcut, because there's so much going on in Deepcut with the Mindenhurst development and other developments in the village, this video this week is going to be very Deepcut top heavy. So if you've got no interest in Deepcut, do use the chapters that I'll use in the email newsletter to navigate to the areas of interest. So obviously, like I say, because there's so much going on, that's why there's going to be a lot about Deepcut in this update. I'm on Newfoundland Road, and just behind me is the former Royal Logistics Corps Museum, and this is going to be the site for the new Deepcut Village supermarket. Now, the history of this is long, and residents have been desperate for a local store. Right now, residents in Deepcut have to go to either Frimley Green, Heatherside, and further to get their groceries. And obviously, we don't want to be encouraging people in their cars. You know, it'd be much better if they had a local store. And of course, some of our old elderly and vulnerable residents, you know, we don't really want to be forcing them onto buses and that type of thing to do their shopping. So obviously, the opening of this store couldn't come soon enough. Now, there's been delay after delay. It would be wrong to blame the local authority on those delays, because you know, the delays are really as a result of commercial factors, because you can't force a supermarket operator to you know, set up shop. You know, there's a process, and you know, the original operator that was going to open here, which was Co-op, pulled out of the arrangement, so then the whole process had to start again, and now it's Asda who are going to open a store here. However, you know, the local authority cannot force or hurry them along to get it open. They work to their own timescales, and I've just found out recently that there is going to be another delay. We were hoping that they'd have the store open at the end of this year. It looks like they're not even going to start work until April next year. I know that's bad news, but just to reassure local residents, there isn't anything I can do or any other councillor or the council can do to hurry things along. The operator will you know, move at its own rate, and they've indicated that they are going to start working around about April next year. So fingers crossed there are no more delays, and we'll have a beautiful new store here in Deepcut by the summer of next year. So just behind me is the Sergeant's Mess in Deepcut, which is kind of where Blackdown Road meets Bellew Road, and that's another phase of the Mindenhurst development, where they're going to begin work very soon. I've just noticed the surveyors in there right now, so you can see the cars behind me. They're surveyors surveying the land, so it stands to reason that work is going to begin there very soon. And what they're going to do is convert the old Sergeant's Mess building, which is a lovely building, into flats, and there are going to be some other properties built around the site too. Now, one bone of contention, particularly with residents of Blackdown Road and Bellew Road, who I'm in very close contact with, is the state of the road surface. And, you know, this road, although is publicly accessible, it's not actually owned or in any way the responsibility of the Highway Authority at Surrey County Council, which does make things a little bit tricky. And this is not going to be an easy update to record, because it is it's quite a large area and there's quite a lot of elements to this problem, which I'm going to try my very best to explain, so do bear with me. So first of all, the road itself, Bellew Road, Blackdown Road, in terms of ownership, half of it is owned by the residents that live on these roads, and the other half is owned by the MOD. Now, if you've seen any of my previous updates, you'll know, as I've said many times before, the Ministry of Defence and the DIO, which is a department of the Ministry of Defence, are notoriously difficult to deal with. they're not responsive. They don't really care, if I'm honest, what residents think, which makes it very tricky for me as one of the locally elected representatives in order to deal with them. And they seemingly, you know, are not willing to be held to account either, which is a bit disappointing for a government body. But nonetheless, we are where we are, and we do have to deal with that organisation in the best way that we can. And the road surface here at Bellew Road and Blackdown Road is in a very poor condition. Now, residents asked me, or tasked me I should say, with trying to find out exactly what's going to happen here, because there was plans within the Mindenhurst development. There was plans to where I'm stood right now, and I'll just spin the camera around so you can see the no entry signs there, which is just by the entrance of the Sergeant's Mess site. Originally there were sort of proposals, or it was certainly discussed, that what would happen is just somewhere around here, maybe a little bit beyond these no entry signs, the road was going to be closed off and a turning head installed to enable cars and trucks and so on to be able to turn round. So this part of Bellew Road was going to be closed off, and that would have alleviated quite a few of the problems of vehicles coming up here the wrong way and just using it as a rat run. But that kind of went off the boil, and there was a bit of uncertainty as to what was going to happen there. So last week I met with highways planners from Surrey County Council. We walked this whole location and we discussed what is being discussed at the council level between Surrey Heath Borough Council and Surrey County Council, the Highways Authority. You know, what have they got in mind for these two roads, Bellew Road and Blackdown Road? And I'm going to try and explain that now. So the turning head idea and the blocking off this area here is still on the cards, and that is something they're actively discussing. Okay, and then further down south on Bellew Road, there's a new development there that I'm going to discuss with you, and I will move the camera down there now and restart. I'm now at the southern end of Bellew Road, and just behind me where the road curves around, that's where the houses at the southern end start, and then is the junction onto Lake Road. Now, what's been added to the sort of complexity of the mix, so to speak, for Bellew Road and Blackdown Road is that Surrey Heath Borough Council have purchased the land, and I've just flipped the camera around there. That land right in front of me here has been purchased by Surrey Heath Borough Council for SANGS provision. And if you don't know what SANGS are, I'll flip the camera back round. If you don't know what SANGS are, it stands for Suitable Alternative to Natural Green Space. And you'll know that we've already got a SANGS in Deepcut, which is the central SANGS, and they're currently building the southern SANGS. And they are beautiful areas where residents can enjoy walks and walk their dogs and all the rest of it. And while they are wonderful bits of infrastructure for leisure purposes, you know, there's a serious purpose for SANGS, which is to enable the Borough Council to bring about more development in Surrey Heath, because they are an area where they're designed to sort of prevent things like dog walkers and cats from going on to sensitive areas like the special protection areas and the triple SIs. How effective that is, I don't know, but it is all part of the kind of natural habitats directive, and in order to build new houses you have to have SANGS provision, especially when you're close to SPA and triple SI. I'm just going to move out of the way because there's a car coming up here and I definitely don't want to be getting knocked over. But yeah, so that's something that's been added to the sort of complexity here. And with the SANGS there will be a car park just behind me. I think is probably where the car park will go. Let me flip the camera around again. And there'll need to be good turning head here, because I think what they're sort of discussing at the moment, although there's nothing cast in stone yet, they're also talking about adding probably where that car is parked there, which is a highways maintenance car. Don't think it's a Surrey County Council one. I think it's just some bloke having his lunch. They're now discussing the possibility of actually closing the road off at this end, as well as the one I mentioned earlier on in the video by the Sergeant's Mess. So literally closing the road off, so traffic won't be able to go beyond roughly this point. Roughly, because I don't exactly know where it's going to go, but it'll be somewhere around here, and then it will be closed off at the other end as well, just beyond the Sergeant's Mess, and the road in between will be left to go wild, basically. So that's what they're discussing at the moment, and I think actually it's not a bad idea. I'm a little bit concerned about the Sangs here and what impact that's going to have in terms of generating traffic up this road, and therefore I think it would be incumbent upon Surrey Heath Borough Council, in my view, and my view don't account for much when it comes to borough council matters these days, because I'm not a councillor there anymore, but in my view, if they're going to put a Sangs here with a car park, then they should at least refurbish this road here for the benefit of people who are going to use it, because it's not, to my mind, you know, it's not suitable as it is. It shouldn't be the county council who refurbish the road, because they're not responsible for it. And if like I say, if the local authority, Surrey Heath Borough Council, are going to put in a Sangs here with a car park and everything else, and therefore encourage people to use this site, then really there needs to be some negotiation in terms of what happens with this road and bringing it up to an acceptable standard. But that'll be for local councillors to negotiate with the local authority when it comes to planning and all the rest of it. I think we're a way off from that happening, but just to put it on residents' radar. But I think that, you know, if that did come to fruition, closing the road off at this end and at the other end, I think that will solve a lot of problems. And then the only outstanding problem is the resurfacing of Blackdown Road. And I'm talking with highways planners now to see if that's something we can negotiate with developers or something like that, to try and find the money needed to sort the road out there, because that is still an outstanding issue too. So sorry for the exceptionally long update on Bellew Road and Blackdown Road. It's not an easy thing to explain, and residents who live on Bellew Road and Blackdown Road all know how to contact me. I'm in close contact with all of them. By all means, you know, get in touch with me, and let's keep the discussions open about that, and let's see if we can get the best possible outcome for Bellew Road and Blackdown Road. So I'm now at the junction of Deepcut Bridge Road and Lake Road, and there was a fair bit of communication via local social media channels about the state of the road here, the road surface that is, and some confusion also in terms of the environmental improvement works being carried out by Skanska, whether the road resurfacing would reach to this junction. Turns out it's not going to, and I provided that update in my last video update on Deepcut. However, since then, and as confirmed to me by highways planning officers that I met with last week, there has been some negotiations so that the resurfacing will reach, because it was only meant to go as far as just before the church. There's been some negotiation, and they are going to take it down to Brunswick Road. It will stop there, but also I'm informed they're going to resurface from the junction here, not the roundabout, but the junction just behind me, you can see in the centre of my frame, so up to the junction, and if I flip the camera around, up to the double yellow lines, which are just before those yellow signs in the very distance there in the centre of the frame. So there is going to be some resurfacing works on this bit here, but only up to the junction, not the roundabout. However, highways officers did tell me that they are in negotiations with another developer to see if this is something that can be negotiated to see if they can get the roundabout sorted out, and if not, then it'll be up to me to go back to the drawing board and see if I can find funding to have that done. But I am also informed that the resurfacing beyond the roundabouts up to the junction on the other side is going to be done, and that was negotiated with the developer of the site. Is it the Bewley Home site there, just down by the bridge? So mostly good news, but still some work to be done in terms of the roundabout here. We need to find some funding to get this redone here, because that's not in a great state. And I did speak to them about this birdmouth rail here, which is all falling apart. Now, I think it stands to reason that this grass verge and this area is the responsibility of the Highway Authority, Surrey County Council. We discussed the birdmouth rail here, and we think that maybe the solution is just to take it out, because it looks a bloody mess. Just to take it out. I don't think it really serves much of a purpose, to be honest with you, although, you know, if you're a local resident and have any views on that, let me know. But I think that certainly in the first instance, just having that all taken out will actually in itself make the place look a lot tidier once all these road signs are gone and all the rest of it. Let me know what you think. Just a very quick update on the church and the progress being made there, which is enormous. You can see behind me the new church hall on the side of the church is currently being constructed, and they're making very fast progress with that. In my meetings with Skanska, they advised me that, you know, they're hoping for completion around April time, which is fantastic. I cannot wait for that church hall to be opened. Very excited about that. It will be an amazing addition to the community, but also be nice to get the church open. I know the church community there can't wait to get inside and start using their church and opening it up to the community. So yeah, very excited about that and can't wait for it to be complete. I'm on Mindenhurst Road, and I wanted to give an update about the one-way system here on Mindenhurst Road. And to give you a bit of background and history, this road was never meant to be one-way. It wasn't designed as one-way, and the only reason why it is one-way right now is a temporary measure which myself and highways planners and the school arranged just before the school was opened, because when the school did open, it coincided at exactly the same time as the environmental improvement works were happening on Deepcut Bridge Road. And we've all felt that the disruption was going to be so significant that we needed some drop-off provision, pick-up and drop-off provision for parents at the school, because there wasn't any. The school was designed for local residents, and it was always envisaged back in the day when the development was designed that parents from Deepcut would walk their children to school. But obviously, because the school was transferred from Lakeside in Frimley for a number of years until all those children sort of go into the next phase of their academic careers, you know, that it was going to cause a problem with pick-up and drop-off provision. So we made the road one way, and we installed these parking bays behind me so that there was adequate drop-off and pick-up provision. But it is only a temporary measure until the environment improvement works on Deepcut Bridge Road are finished. Now, they're scheduled to be finished in September, end of September. That's the hope anyway. And then following my meeting with highways planners, I asked them when the road will be put back to two-way from one-way, and they've decided they're going to wait until the church is open, which they're hoping is going to be in April, or the church car park rather is going to be open, which should be around about April time, so that parents of the school will have drop-off and pick-up provision at the church car park, and then they'll just have a very short walk through the lovely pathways there that have just been installed to the entrance of the school. Now, some residents would like this road to stay one way, and I've got to say that while I understand why people want that, it is highly unlikely that this road will ever go back to one way. It will be open back as two-way from April is the prediction right now, all being well with the church car park and everything else. But I think what people don't understand is that, and if I flip my camera around just a bit in front of me, right behind the school and that hoarding in front of me, they're currently knocking down all the old Barratt buildings and making way for the next phase of housing. And the thing is that once those houses go in, as was designed with this road, you know, those residents there are going to want access to the supermarket, the new supermarket when it opens, the Frog, and going to be able to want to use this road as designed to go both ways. So while I do appreciate that there are a number of residents that would like to keep this one way, that is going to be highly unlikely. It's not impossible that we could get it changed, but I think that what we would need to do is wait until those houses go in so that we can measure the impact of what making it one way again would be, and we're not going to know that until those houses are in and people are using the roads as they were designed. So I know that is probably not the news that a lot of people want to hear, and I do understand why people want to keep it one way. It has been rather nice, I've got to concede. I use it myself, both on my bike, and my wife uses it in her car. But yeah, as things stand, this will be going back to two-way around about April time. I'm on Deepcut Bridge Road, right in the centre of the village. You can see the world famous Deepcut Cafe in the centre of my frame just behind me, and it's making me hungry just looking at it. It is lunchtime now. Gosh, I need to try and resist the temptation of going in there and having me lunch. But anyway, residents wanted an update on the 20 mile per hour status, or the speed status of Deepcut Bridge Road once the environmental improvement works are complete. Now, it was my understanding, which was wrong, I have to say. I am often wrong, but it was my understanding that this would be 30 miles per hour, as is the case now. But it turns out that all as part of the plans of the environmental improvement works, that the road would be given 20 miles per hour status, which would be consistent with the Mindenhurst road and the loop roads and all the other new roads within Deepcut. So there is a process that has to go through. It might sound easy just changing a road from 30 miles an hour to 20 miles per hour. Actually, there's actually a huge amount of regulatory process that the Highway Authority have to do in order to make that happen. But I am told that that will happen once the road is complete. And yeah, Deepcut Bridge Road, or certainly this element of Deepcut Bridge Road from the bridge all the way down, the bridge that goes over the railway track there at the bottom of Deepcut Bridge Road to the south of the village, right the way up to the northern access roundabout, will be 20 miles per hour. So obviously I'll keep residents informed of the progress with that. I'm not sure it's going to happen right away because, like I said, they do have to go through all that regulatory process. But yeah, that is the intention for Deepcut Bridge Road, for it to be 20 miles per hour. Still on Deepcut Road, but a slightly different thing to update residents on, and that is that, so just behind me is the section of Deepcut Bridge Road, literally right outside Dettingen Park, in between the two roundabouts. Now, there's been some historic problems on this road with vehicles. Tends to be late at night. I don't know if the drivers are drunk or whatever, but over the years there's been quite a lot of vehicles who have approached, let me flip the camera around, where those two cars are going now over the roundabout. They approached that too fast and skid into the railings, and I've lost count literally dozens of times since I've lived here, where these railings, or certainly the ones on the other side of the roundabout up there, have been taken out by cars losing control at that roundabout. So clearly this stretch of road people do go probably a little bit too quick on some occasions. And I asked the highways planners, because right in front of me, where, I don't know if you can see that little blue car in the centre of the frame there, well, right next to that car is a brand new path that the developers installed as a safe walking to school and cycle route from Deepcut to Tomlinscote School. So that path goes all the way to Tomlinscote School, and children can cycle to school, walk to school, and I do know there are quite a few kids that use that path to get to Tomlinscote, which is fantastic, as well as local residents using it. But it made sense to me that with the development of 1,200 new houses in Deepcut, there would be an increase in children walking to school, and I felt that it would be a good idea to install some form of crossing here, whether it be a raised table or actually a formal zebra crossing, which would be my preference. I've been in long discussions with highways planners over the last couple of years, because it was something that wasn't thought of during the planning stages of the Mindenhurst development, and we can't retrospectively go back to developers and compel them to install one, because that doesn't form part of the agreement, basically. But I have tasked highways planners to negotiate to see if we could get a crossing here on Deepcut Bridge Road, which would make sense to link up that safe walk route and cycle route to school. And I've got some good news. I mean, I've got to be honest with you, it wasn't something I thought I would pull off, because I know how difficult it is to get new crossings, as one of my neighbouring county councillors has found during his tenure. He's managed to secure 2 of them, but it was a real hard slog for him to get the funding for that, and I thought I'd have the same problem here. But actually, highways planners, on behalf of local residents, have managed to negotiate with the developer of the care home to have, at the very least, a raised table here on Deepcut Bridge Road, just outside Dettingen Park. But I am seeing if we can get an actual, not just a raised table, but turn that into a zebra crossing as well. So really good news, really happy about that. I would just like to thank highways planners for working so hard to get that. You know, the highways department at Surrey County Council get a bit of a tough rap. I know that some of the quality of the roads has not been great over the last couple of years, but I have to say I'd get far fewer complaints about highways now, because they are working very hard to get the worst roads resurfaced. I think 100 miles of roads is what they've got funding for to resurface across Surrey. So that those complaints are getting a lot less. I know there's still a lot of work to be done still, but I think that it's credit where credit's due. The highways planners at Surrey County Council have really come up trumps for residents on this particular issue. I'm really pleased that we're going to get, at the very least, a raised table here on Deepcut Bridge Road. But at best, we're going to get a zebra crossing, and that's what I'm going to be working to ensure happens. On a slightly different matter, but at the very same location, I did get sort of notice from one of the resident groups that they were considering 20 miles per hour, or campaigning for 20 miles per hour at this location. So, because as I put in my earlier update on the bottom end of Deepcut Bridge Road there through the village centre, that's going to be 20 miles per hour, or at least that's the plan. But that doesn't mean that this bit of the road is going to be 20 miles per hour. And I'll be very interested to know what local residents think. Would they want this to be 20 miles per hour? I've said before, I have my reservations about 20 miles per hour. Quite happy and support at locations where, you know, it's identified that there is a need for it. But I think in a lot of other locations, you know, I think the only thing we achieve by reducing the speed limit is actually increase the amount by which people break the law. Because if you're that way inclined to drive like a nutter at 30 miles per hour, you're still going to do it at 20 miles per hour, and no amount of 20 miles per hour signs is going to change that, basically. So I am keen to hear what local residents think, because I will be guided, as always, by local residents, because it doesn't really matter what I think. What matters is what you think. So if you would like to see this road here outside Dettingen Park reduced to 20 miles per hour. You know, that's something I will look into. It's not straightforward, as I mentioned in my other update. There is criteria to meet and a process to go through, which is not straightforward. But if that's what residents want, I will do my utmost to make sure that that's what residents get. Still in Deepcut, and excuse me, I want to talk about the bane of my life at the moment, which is litter bins. Get so much communication from residents about litter bins and overflowing dog bins and all that sort of stuff. Now, I've covered this in previous videos, so I'm not going to go into Surrey Heath Borough Council and their responsibilities. But, you know, most litter bins in the borough are the responsibility of Surrey Heath Borough Council, but there are some anomalies to that. So, for instance, there are some this on MOD land that's publicly accessible. If you see any litter bins there, that's the MOD that's responsible for clearing those. And we know, don't we, how responsible the MOD are, responsive the MOD are, which is not at all. And there are some other anomalies too. So the complaint I received recently was for the litter bins on the village green in Deepcut. Now, the sort of quirk there is that the village green and play area there has not been adopted by Surrey Heath Borough Council yet. It will be in due course, but right now the village green and the maintenance of the village green, the litter bins and everything else is the responsibility of Skanska, the developer of Mindenhurst. So I had a couple of complaints a couple of weekends ago about the bin there. You know, the weather was good. It was a very busy weekend. There was a lot of kids using and families using the play area that had come from the Frog and so on. And the bins got overwhelmed there. Excuse me, as you can tell, I'm full of cold. Anyway, I've reported that to Skanska. They dealt with it really quickly, to be fair. And to be honest, Skanska are very good at emptying the bins. I think it was just a particular busy weekend of people using that play area, and like I say, the bins just got overwhelmed. But if you are using that play area in the future and you do spot that the bin is overflowing, the organisation to report that to is Skanska through the Mindenhurst website, and I'll overlay that onto the video here. However, I don't think it's going to be long before Surrey Heath Borough Council do adopt the village green there and the play area and that, and then it will become their responsibility. But of course, I will update residents on that when the time comes. To Frimley Green now, and I wanted to talk about the Hatches level crossing. So, by way of a bit of history, residents may remember that some time ago there was a proposal by Network Rail to close off the level crossing at the Hatches and actually Farnborough North Station as well. And instead of the crossing at the Hatches, they proposed to install a footbridge at the bottom of Spencer Close. Okay, now there was quite a lot of comments that had come from the community about their thoughts on that particular idea. And I think it's fair to say the vast majority of local residents didn't like the idea for a whole host of reasons, which I don't need to go into now. But the long and short of it is that Network Rail relented and decided to abandon the idea of the footbridge at Spencer Close and closing off the Hatches level crossing. Now, they did go ahead, though, with the footbridge at Farnborough North. And I use Farnborough North Station quite a lot. And that is almost complete. I'm pretty certain that is going to be open any day now. And it looks quite good, actually. Not sure how I'm going to get my bike over it, but anyway, when I go to Reading. But anyway, that's a by the by. But I think it's fair to say also that, you know, most residents were happy at the outcome of the abandonment of the Spencer Close footbridge idea. However, as is always the case with these things, there are winners and there are losers. And I think also it's fair to say that some residents at the Hatches were disappointed at the outcome, because I've had feedback from residents for quite some time now at that location that the soundboards that were installed to warn that a train is coming is very disruptive to their lives. And I believe as well that in recent years, those boards were, I don't know what the best word is, but updated, upgraded, I don't know, but they're even louder than what they used to be, apparently. And you can understand if you live very close to that, it's not the sort of thing you want to be listening to when you're watching EastEnders or whatever. So, I do understand there are some people that are unhappy with the outcome. Anyway, one resident has written to me and asked me, can I look into what is going to happen there and if there are any plans by Network Rail to do anything about that particular issue, because it is still outstanding. It's been rumbling on for a few years now. And obviously we want to get that resolved to everybody's satisfaction. It would be nice if there were no losers in these things, wouldn't it? And as the county councillor for the area, I have taken it upon myself to write to Network Rail and see if they will look at that. Now, I have to say that Network Rail, a bit like the DIO in this regard, are not the greatest organisation in terms of responsiveness. They're not an easy organisation to deal with, as I think some of my councillor colleagues around the area have discovered recently. They're not an easy organisation, but I am actually quite surprised that when I emailed them about this issue, I did get a response quite quickly, and they've told me that they are going to look into the matter and come back to me in due course. So this is an update on that. If you're a resident affected by that, or you use the hatches and you're interested in this, I will update you as soon as I hear back in a future update. To Mytchett now, or Frimley Green, it's right on the border, right outside Frimley Lodge Park, and a number of residents via one of the local social media groups had reported to me that the drains right outside Frimley Lodge Park, opposite the scaffolding place, or where the scaffolding place used to be, were all clogged up with leaves and mud and all the rest of it. And she'd sent me some pictures over to show me that, and wanted obviously some action, because it does get flooded there quite often, especially when it's raining. I mean, as I'm recording this now, it's tipping it down outside right now. So, these blocked up drains do cause issues to local residents, especially if you're a parent with a kid in a pushchair or wheelchair user, mobility scooter user, and a car comes past and you get soaked. It's awful. So, that is something I am keen to try and resolve. So I did report that on behalf of the resident, and I'm actually pleased to say the county council dealt with that immediately. So fair play to them, credit where credit's due. That issue is now resolved, and another one off the list. And I would also like to thank my good friend David Natalie, who also reported it around about the same time, I think, or maybe even a few days sooner. So really good community action there. So thank you very much. In Frimley Green again, and I had some communication from a resident about some overhanging foliage over the footpath. Now, ordinarily, it's not something that I would treat very urgently, but actually in this case, it's right outside the GP surgery. So it stands to reason that just because it's outside the GP surgery, quite a high proportion of people that will be going there are vulnerable in one way or another, or may have mobility issues or whatever it may be. And what I don't want, because that road there, that Wharf Road, is busy, I don't want vulnerable people being forced out into the main road because they can't walk through and access the footpath, overhanging foliage, causing an obstruction and all that sort of thing. So I've reported that to Surrey County Council, did that this morning actually, and asked them to deal with that urgently. Now I'm hoping, touch wood, that that will be dealt with very quickly, because where those bushes are is actually, to my mind, from what I can see, forms part of Frimley Green Library. And as that Frimley Green Library is Surrey County Council, hopefully we should be able to get that dealt with quite quickly. But I will keep people updated with progress on that, should that be needed. Finally, I want to have a bit of a shameless plug, my new podcast, which I co-host with my good friend Marissa Heath. Now, Marissa is a fellow councillor at Surrey County Council and also a cabinet member at Surrey. She and I work together. She is the cabinet member for the environment, and I was her deputy for about a year. So we work very closely together and become great friends. And we decided to start a podcast. Now, podcasting is an emerging format. It's been around a long time, but it's only in recent years that it's really taken off. And Marissa and I have decided to start our own podcast, which is called The Best is Surrey. Now, there will be some political elements to the podcast, because obviously we're both politicians, and particularly when it comes to local politics, it's something that we have quite a lot of insight with, and we would hope that we can provide some useful sort of punditry, let's say, on things going on politically in Surrey. But we also want to shine light on some of the great stuff that's going on in Surrey, but also dig deep into some of the issues that residents face and that we all face together as Surrey residents. And in this week's podcast, which is our first episode, we recorded a pilot episode a few weeks ago, but our proper first episode was published today. And the main subject we were talking about is responsible dog ownership. And I'm not going to give it away, but I think you might be quite surprised, maybe even alarmed at some of my views on responsible dog ownership. So check it out. It's called The Best is Surrey. You can find it on all the main sort of podcast apps. So Spotify, if you're an Apple or iPhone user, you can download it from Apple Podcasts through the Apple Podcast app. Again, just search The Best is Surrey. Or if you don't really like the podcast format or it's not something you're using, we've also created a YouTube channel, and I'll overlay the link onto this, The Best is Surrey on YouTube, so which is basically a video version of every podcast, because we do actually record them on Zoom, so we're able to do that, have an audio-only version and a video version. And we hope you'll support that and follow, and we'll be keen to hear from you. If there's any topics you'd like us to cover on our podcast, good, bad or ugly, we're more than happy to do that, so do get in touch.